Andrea, you reached out to us last week also in regards to an issue. Before we go further on that issue, I need to make a disclaimer so everyone understands exactly how we operate. We got the email from you asking us if we would be interested in a story. I read it. It was something that I felt very strongly about it because I feel like there is an extreme injustice from our social programs and CPS, domestic abuse, in many other things. But today we're going to stay focused on CPS. We feel like there is an extremely abuse of injustice in the sense of things are not investigated properly. So I decided to, yes, we are going to run the story. But I want to make it very clear to everyone that when somebody calls us, the fact that we post the story does not necessarily mean that we agree with the story. We always try both sides of that story, the same courtesy looking forward and give us their version. You accepted without hesitation. We reached out, well, actually the other person from the other side of the family reached out to us with a very intimidating email saying, look, take the article out or else, which was something that I really didn't like. And immediately it gave me an inclination that what you were saying might be true, because instead of the person coming to me in a nice way, look, you don't know both sides of the story, perhaps you need to talk to us. But no, the message was right away, take it out or else, which to me was a form of extortion. If you don't do this, we are going to do that. So, but we told the person, look, we ran a story, but I am saying that the story is true. And since you are the other person, the other side of the story, why don't you take my invitation to come in and give us your version of the story? Okay. Well, she said that she didn't want to because she prefers to keep this in the family, resolve this in a friendly way, blah, blah, blah. So she didn't accept, you did. So both sides had the same courtesy. Now, since I'm talking too much and this is your story, not mine, tell us what happened.
Thank you. Let me just first thank you, Ruros and the Yonkers Voice, for giving me the opportunity to use this platform to tell my story and to give me the opportunity to do this interview. I just wanted to first introduce myself. My name is Andrea Vasquez. I am a licensed master social worker. I have been in Yonkers for almost 20 years. I work for the Department of Education. I am a school social worker in the South Bronx. And I have been at my middle school for 12 years with the same principal at the same school. I have worked in Yonkers doing work with children for over 15 years. I'm a mandated reporter and I am a community activist. So this is why this issue is near and dear to my heart now. I've been many times on the other side of making CPS or ACS calls, which is what it is in the city, Child Protective Services. But I've never been on the end of somebody targeting me. I understand what happens with the calls. I understand the parameters, but I never knew that people made false allegations to the extent that they make them until I myself was a victim of false allegations. So I do want to just go over what happened with the family. It was a family dispute. It did involve the individual that contacted you and my husband's side of the family, his mother's side of the family, many of his aunts, his cousins. People were aware, people were involved. The initial incident surrounded a family dispute that was, I'm sorry.
Just before you go, deep into the issue itself, let's establish you first.
Okay.
So you've been working at the school system for how many years?
I've been in the school system since 2005. I've been in the New York City Board of Education since 2008. So this is my 12th year at a middle school in the South Bronx, same principal, same school. The reason I bring that up as being relevant is because before any CPS call was made, these individuals targeted me at my job. They called my school. They call my principal.
Right now, I want to establish that you are a reputable person, okay? It's not like, you are a person with, terrible credibility, a person that has these issues in the past. So I want to establish you know who you are. So you never had any disciplinary issues at school. You never had the problem with your children before in school. No family issues, besides the family issues, husband and wife that everybody has.
Absolutely. No, I have never been involved in any sort of crime. Me and my husband have never had any reports of domestic violence. My children have never been involved with the CPS system. I have been on PTAs through different schools that I've worked at. I am always involved. That is why I wanted to come forward, because I felt completely violated by this. And I could not understand how individuals can get away with things like this, because it can truly tarnish someone's reputation. I've been in Yonkers almost 20 years, and I feel like it's important to advocate for those that are victims in these situations.
Well, that was one of the reasons that I felt compelled into interviewing you, because you now have been on both sides of that spectrum. You have been the person who called CPS about possible child abuse and neglect. And now you are the person who is being called on CPS for the exactly same things that you call. Now, you are a person that understands that not because somebody called, that makes it true.
Absolutely. I understand that a mandated reporter, that it is anonymous. It doesn't make it true. I call from a school, so I always have to give my information. Teachers don't feel comfortable sometimes, but I'm actually the designated liaison in the school for mandated calls. So I know this in and out. I go to trainings all the time for it. I know the protocols, and I have to give information. And being a school resource, that's a pretty reliable source. But I do know that other people can make calls all the time. Neighbors, if you're in a dispute with your partner or over custody, there's lots of reasons that people make anonymous calls. So I just feel every time I make a call, I thoughtfully make it, because I understand what a family is going to have to go through. It is not just a haphazard thing to be doing. And to think that people are doing this as ways to get back at other people. And at the end of the day, children are being hurt. They're being abused by the CPS system, because how many times do families have to go through this and children have to be subjected for somebody else's personal vendetta?
But that's to me, that's the true issue, that people are taking advantage of CPS and other agencies, to get back at other people, their spouses, their husbands, or whatever, because they feel like they can be protected by those agencies. And the reason why they feel that is because they know that those agencies don't fully investigate the case before they see any validity on the issue. They rush into investigation, call this one, call that one, and at times they might mess up the whole person's, credibility and reputation. Then they find out not truthful to the allegation, and sometimes not even then they stop. If somebody else calls, they will restart a new investigation. As it was in your case, you had one investigation, you had second investigation, you had the third investigation, you had the fourth investigation, and all the investigations came from family members. At what point they're going to understand that this is a vendetta?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's the bad blood between you and your family from your husband's side? Why is it? Why do they do this?
Thank you for the question. I have been with my husband since I was 16. I have been married for 10 years. I have been with my husband for 22 years. I have known his family for a long time. They were all at my wedding. They were at the birth of my children. They've been many times to my home for parties, Christmas parties we threw for the family. I cannot answer that question, Ruros. I cannot. I have done things for these people that they have never done for me and for their children. So not only have I been good to them and my husband has been good to them, but we have been good to their children. So to be targeted is absolutely heartbreaking. But I have to bring it back to a level of jealousy and envy. And I'm not tooting my horn like me and my family are the best people. But sometimes when you have individuals in the family that have attained a certain level of success and are performing at a certain level, individuals get jealous. Individuals start to poke. Individuals start to try and break down those family members. Unfortunately, I honestly cannot tell you anything that I did, anything. I never called their jobs. And even after all of this, there are true things that I could probably report to CPS and I wouldn't do it. Why? Because I care about the children in those homes. Despite their disregard for my children, I wouldn't do that. So I cannot tell you, Ruros, what the issue is, but I can tell you that the conflict stemmed from September of 2019 of last year. My husband lost his sister, his baby sister, 3 years ago, and her birthday was coming up. There were some things that were done surrounding her death that were very sensitive to the family. As you can understand, my husband has a lot of hurt and pain surrounding losing his sister. So, and as you know, if I've been with him 22 years, I've known his sister a very long time as well. It's a very sensitive issue. There were some words exchanged. There was a dispute regarding that issue that happened in September. Words were exchanged on Facebook, words. Simply after some Facebook posts, my job was called. That was the first assault on me. My husband owns his own business. They cannot call a boss for him. Who did they target? His wife. They called my principal. Thank God my principal believes in me because she came directly to me and said, Vasquez, somebody called me about you. This seems funny. This person doesn't even have a student that goes to our school, but they're trying to claim you're harassing them. They didn't call my principal once. They called her 3 different times and texted her to the point to where she blocked them. So that was the first assault on me. And then I spoke to my husband about it. He addressed it with them. That created another conflict. And then later in the week, CPS was called. Prior to CPS even being called, texts were sent to me from the individual who sent you that nasty message. She sent me a flurry of texts. Her daughter sent me texts. The cousin sent me texts. Horrible, disgusting texts that I could share. That I just said, stop harassing me, and they tried to break me down, say the most disgusting things that I won't even repeat. So after that, and in the text, they said, have a good night. I hope you sleep well. You might have trouble sleeping tonight. And at 12:30 midnight, I get a knock on my door, CPS, 2 big men at my door, CPS, open up. I cannot explain the level of anxiety.
When they knock at the door, what are the allegations? You knock at the door, CPS, okay, why are you here for? Did you ask?
I did. So we had been anticipating some level of attack from the text. So my husband thought they were sending people to come to the home to fight us, to try to hurt us. So he didn't open the door. He was like, I don't know who you are. It was midnight. It was after midnight, 2 men at the door. He did not open the door. And I'm glad he didn't. I was scared. I didn't know who it was. So we immediately called the police.
Okay.
And then we filed a police report. And we told them that we felt we were being targeted. We have no problem working with CPS, but the way they came into the home was terrifying to me, terrifying to my children, and we would contact them in the morning, and the police took the report.
Now, when the police arrived, were the CPS agents still there?
No, the CPS agents came and went pretty quickly. My husband opened the door and told them to leave. He was not letting them in the home. And they left.
So they identified themselves with a badge, names, and badge number.
No.
So you don't really know if they are CPS or not.
I don't. I got a knock at my door. 2 men were yelling, CPS, open up. My husband opened the screen of the door and told them to leave. There was no identification of the CPS workers. And to be quite honest with you, the way they swooped in was very, very disturbing and alarming.
Yeah, because my understanding is that when CPS goes to a residency, in the middle of the night or whatever, They also take police department with them just in case things escalate and somebody needs to maintain order. So that's why I'm asking. So
yes, there was no identification of the CPS workers. No police accompanied them. And when I learned the next day, I called first thing in the morning to the worker to find out what were the allegations. As you can imagine, I was extremely anxious about the whole situation. She came directly out to the home and explained the allegations. And it was absolutely appalling.
But when you called the next day, did they accept that they had sent 2 agents on the night prior?
She did. She said we did send people. They should have identified themselves. I told her that they didn't. I told her the way they came swooping in. She said because of the allegations that they came with 2 men because they had made allegations that implied some level of violence in the home. So they came with that level of 2 men, but nobody identified themselves. I did tell that to my worker when I spoke to her the next day. They just came in just very, very rushing in without any sort of calmness or business card, or they didn't even leave a card. So even if you weren't able to speak to me, you didn't leave anything. I called the agency and found the worker myself. Because I'm a social worker, I understand how these things work. So I knew how to advocate and navigate some of the system to immediately get the information I needed and get the worker out to my home.
My point was just to make sure that the 2 men that showed up on the night before were in fact agents of the CPS.
Yes, they were.
By you calling the next day, and they accepting that they did send 2 men on the prior night, that established that they were agents of the CPS.
They were agents of the CPS. Yes, that is correct.
Now, Andrea, I can understand CPS receives 1 call and they go investigate because they got to make sure that the children or the child is okay. I can understand that. Now, a second investigation, I can as well. Yes, maybe we didn't detect anything on the first, we're doing a second investigation. But find out also who is calling and making the allegations. Now, you receive a third and a fourth. And it happens that everyone who's calling comes from the same family. At what point is CPS is going to think maybe there is a vendetta issue here, maybe there is a personal problem? We haven't found nothing on the first, the second, the third. Why not launch an investigation or launch a complaint against those who are making unfounded allegations in order to hurt or break a family?
Yes, and I asked of every worker that I had, I dealt with 3 in the process, even though there were 4 calls, and everyone said to me, the onus was on me. Well, you need to go to the district attorney, you need to try to fight it, you may have to get a lawyer. But I asked them, what can you do on your end? Can't you in some way track what's happening in regards to the call or flag a case after a certain number of unfounded allegations? Because it is really unfair to continuously come out to the home because it is a process. The worker has to come back to the home. They have to physically see the children. They have to speak to the children. They have to then look in your home again. That is very intrusive. And I got 3 calls in a week. So imagine if I really wasn't advocating and let them in every single time. Now who is being traumatized? My children. And I'm a good parent. So that is not fair and that is not right. And as I started to research this, I found that this is a big problem. 4 out of 5 of the calls that are made to CPS are false allegations.
So
that means, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. So the agency that is actually in charge of protecting the children now are traumatizing the children by what they are doing.
Exactly. So it's completely against the mission and I would assume the vision of Child Protective Services when you are entertaining false allegations and you don't create a system that is built to make sure that those individuals are protected as well, because now people know that they can do that and they can get away with it. That's why it happened 4 times to me. And the worker that I worked with, he told me that he was working with another family that he's been to the home 10 times. And it was similar to mine. And he knew it was false allegations, but he, as a part of his job, has to go out every single time to investigate. And I understand that, but it has to be some sort of protocol. CPS must look at the system closer to make sure that people are not abusing the system in regards to the resources. Because how is this worker supposed to find out if a child is really being abused on his caseload if he has to visit a home 10 times? For nonsense. And then what are those children going through? I would never let somebody see my kids 10 times. I would advocate. I would try to get a lawyer, but everybody cannot do that. Everyone does not know their rights. So they allow the worker 10 times to talk to their children. That child now knows that worker. That's not fair. That might be a good parent that's working very hard for their children and for their family, but now they have to explain to their child while they're being targeted the way I did. And that's not right. Nobody can take away the trauma that me and my kids and family went through that night. Nobody. And that's not right. And that is why I'm here.
Andrea, can you articulate what your children are telling you, how this has impacted them? What are they asking you?
Absolutely. You know, my children know these people. So they are asking me, why, mommy, why did they do this? You know, it's very sad because when the ACS worker or the CPS worker was interviewing my son the first time, he even told the worker that 2 people from the family have been videotaping him and telling him to say bad things about his parents. I think people. So my son was in the care. My son was in the care of his husband's grandmother and several aunts and cousins that live in the same building. There were times where he would go to those aunts and cousins' house, and they actually videotaped my son, telling him to say bad things, that mommy does this to daddy, daddy does this to mommy, so that they could try to do this to me. I didn't coerce him to say any of that, but the CPS worker got that from him and said that she was going to follow up on what those individuals did to my son to try to get him to make allegations about us. The extent that people will go to hurt others is disgusting.
Well,
but yes.
Videotaping or interrogating a child without parental permission, it's illegal.
Yes.
Have you followed up?
Yes. So I am working with that CPS worker and the district attorney to try and make sure my case is known. And my own personal attorney. So yes, I'm actively involved in following up.
So did you start litigation against the family members that are arrested?
So there has been, I really would like to refrain from talking about that. But what I would like to say is that I am pursuing justice for my family. I don't want to get into details as to what my next steps are. I would like to, at the end of this, give some pointers to parents that may feel they've been violated, but I would like to just keep that between me and my family. Thank you.
Understood. But you see, Andrea, talking to you, I can see how well you are able to articulate all the issues, which brings up another problem. What happens to mothers and fathers and families that don't know their rights and are not able to articulate the issues? How many mothers have lost their child because of another family member who might be jealous? Well, and that can come from the mother side or from the father side, okay? But my point is the injustice. How many parents have lost custody of their children because of things exactly like the one that you are describing?
I think that's an excellent point. I think lots of parents are struggling with this. And when you posted my comment, I got a lot of messages. I want to thank everyone who reached out with support and sharing their story. A lot of people are ashamed to come forward and share their story because they don't want anyone to know that they even had a CPS call. You know, it's a level of shame that's attached to it that then makes people stay quiet. And you shouldn't stay quiet if you're innocent and you're a victim. You're really a victim victim at the end of the day, and it's not right. I wanted to just give some pointers to families and to parents to learn to advocate on their behalf because they do have rights. You know, this is a horrible situation and anybody put in it is going to feel violated. But I don't want people to feel like they have to hide or that they don't have a voice or they can't, you know, push back a little on CPS and say, hey, I had unfounded 2, 3, 4 cases. You don't need to come see my children. You should be able to speak up about what you're comfortable with your children being exposed to at that point, because you still have to protect your children. CPS is now doing things that is violating your children. And my own kids have asked, Mommy, why? Why is this happening? Why are they doing this? Do we have to talk to that person again? When is this going to be over? My 4-year-old and 8-year-old do not deserve to have to ask me those questions when I'm a good parent and I work really hard to provide a good life for them. So if you're a parent that's struggling with this, my pointers would be to first try to remain calm. It's very violating. But if you escalate things, if you respond with violence, then they now have more against you. So try to remain calm. Immediately call the police. If you are scared the way I was, the way someone came into your home, it's okay to say, no, I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to answer. That's okay. And immediately call the police. Take a report. Tell the police. The police officer was very empathetic. He said he sees it all the time. He told me, don't worry about it. I was so upset. He was comforting me. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I see it all the time. Get a police report taken immediately. Document everything they're sending you, texts, threats. I printed everything. I asked my principal, send me what they sent you, everything, so you can build a case against these people. Exactly. So that if you need to go to the district attorney, you have something to really work with.
Now, Andrea, we need, for things to get attention, the problems must be exposed, okay? Because if you don't talk about it, just like we have in this interview, and you are articulating this issue. This issue, it's not the first time that it happened. And if people expose these type of problems, how CPS and other agencies are doing things, maybe we would have this already solved and make them be more careful before they actually take actions. Because look, nothing might come out of it in your case. Maybe things will be solved by itself. But the records that show that CPS investigated you 4 times will stay there for a very long time.
You're right. Okay. And that is what's not fair. It's not as if this is a little anonymous call that goes away after it's unfounded. Exactly. I know because I'm a social worker. That's why I was so devastated when it happened to me, because it can be life-changing. People have sent me messages. My husband almost lost his job. My daughter's going through a situation at her job because of it. It's not right, especially for people that work really hard to get where they're at. And for someone just to do something for a personal vendetta, CPS must do better. They must do better in regards to looking at the protocols that they have and the parameters of how to flag cases that might have false allegations. If over 80% of the cases are false calls, then we need to look at the system to see how we get relevant and credible calls, because there's lots of children that are probably being abused that are not being seen because people are running around chasing false calls. So that is a major issue if you think about the bigger systemic problem and what's happening in the system, and how me as a social worker continue to struggle with ACS and CPS and those systems and making sure real children get the help they need. If they're chasing people like me, or the caseworker is chasing individuals for 10 unfounded cases, of course children are going to go missing and through the cracks. Of course they are. Something has to change. It's not right. I'm not saying that they don't have to follow up. I'm not saying it's not important. As a social worker, a mandated reporter, I know more than anything that it could be that one time that maybe something happened, but it could also be that 10th time that somebody's making a false call. We need to give that thought some relevance as well, because it's draining our system.
Now, 84% of the calls are unfounded. That's terrible, because because if 84% of people are calling them to make unfounded calls, is because they feel that CPS actually can be used
Absolutely.
as a tool of personal vendetta, because they know that CPS will make your life hell for a while, and they keep using it. So it's time to change the law. It's time to do something. We need laws that will protect the person who an unfounded allegation is made against. Okay, you're doing this for the children, fine. But if we find out that you did this for personal vendetta, it's going to have legal consequences to those that are making those allegations. And Andrea, this does not just affect CPS. It affects many other things. Domestic violence. There is many spouses, regardless if they are women, mostly women, okay, that uses the court systems as a personal vendetta, because they know that if they call the police department and say, look, I got a black and blue on my arm, and he did it, they will not investigate much. Automatically, the husband will go in. And why they do it? Because some people already know how to use the system in their own advantage. So we need to create awareness. We need to talk about it. And I would like to tap into you to create more of programs like this, where we can create awareness out there for people to know their rights, for people to know how they should handle their problems, and demand that CPS does things in a proper way. That they should not be eager just to launch an investigation if it's unfounded.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually think the caseworkers from CPS would appreciate advocacy in that area as well, because in the worker that I specifically work with, who was very helpful, he actually told me about having these 10 calls and having to go out every time. And for him, it's very daunting and difficult and frustrating, because he feels his time could be spent on families that really need him. So, it's something where the workers probably get frustrated. They may get burnt out even more if they feel like the validity of their work is not being respected and they're chasing frivolous calls for no reason. So I do feel that more advocacy needs to be done. I would be happy to partner with you and to continue to spread the message about this issue as well as other important issues, because it needs the attention.
I think this is a very important issue that needs the attention. I think you needed the attention 5 years ago, but we cannot do nothing about the past. Perhaps we can do something about going forward. Now, Andrea, you don't have to answer this question. Are you prepared to name those that at CPS that who you spoke with, maybe the director, maybe the manager, because we need to put them in blast. People need to know, because that person who investigated you might be investigating another family. That manager that sent her to investigate you might be sending them to investigate another family. So we need to put them on blast. We need to know who they are, and we need to know who are those that are making decisions that are wrong.
No, I completely understand. I would have to say the CPS workers that I have worked with have been very helpful. They have been very, very helpful. They have actually advocated to try and help me get through this situation. Now, a lot of them, with everything going on as well, I haven't stair-stepped up to meeting with the supervisor, so I cannot say that there's a particular supervisor that's putting out red tape or anybody individually. I understand these workers are doing their job. They have to go and investigate, but all of them have been willing to work with me in my parameters of comfortability and letting them see my children. And I didn't have them come to my home 4 different times. They've only seen my children twice, even though I've had 2 calls. But that's because I've advocated and said the first one was unfounded. There's no need. And the last 3 calls came in 1 week. So you didn't even have a chance to investigate before they just berated you with more calls. So I cannot identify anyone that I can hold accountable. I do not want to blame the workers that I work with because I know they're simply doing their jobs, and it's the system. It's the system. And even if we were to speak to a supervisor, I asked him, can I talk to your supervisor? Is there a task force or something that I can advocate? And he was really like, no, it's the system. That's what it is. We need to hold our politicians more accountable for what's happening. I don't know. Everything I've read is that it's something where we need some political pull. I can go to the top of the ranks of CPS, but they may say to me, that's a policy, which means that we have to go differently to our approach.
Well, fair enough. I know that lots of people are going to be watching this interview. So this shout out goes to our legislators, the ones that make the laws, you know, and think about it. You need to make laws that make sense.
Yes.
Okay? You need to make laws that will protect everybody.
Absolutely.
Laws that cannot be used for personal vendettas. Okay? You need to make laws that are just. We understand that something can always happen, okay, here and there, but we cannot have a system that is in part designed for people to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
By their own personal vendettas. Well, Andrea, thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
And I just wanted to say one more thing, Ruros. Yeah. So to the individuals that tried to target me and my family, you didn't win. It didn't work. If anything, you empowered me to be more involved with this topic. And to parents that are struggling with this individual issue, please do not be a victim. And please do not feel ashamed. You have been targeted, and that is not right. So I'm here to continue to advocate on the behalf of those parents and families. And I thank you, Ruros, and the Yonkers Voice, again, for giving me an opportunity to interview with you.
Well, I will echo those words and say, good, guys, if you're thinking that sending me private messages, trying to intimidate me or extort me not to publish a story because you're going to do, or else do the OL, text me. Okay? But if you want to contact me because you have a story to tell me, or you have the other side of the token, then by all means. We don't take sides. We are not in favor of Andrea. We are not in favor of the other family. And as far as I'm concerned, this is not about you, Andrea. This is about a bigger case. This is about the system, as you have said repeatedly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Okay. So thank you. And with this, we conclude our interview, and let's stay in touch. We would like to bring you back and talk about other social issues that are affecting many.
Great. I would love that, Ruros. I would love to continue to contribute to the Yonkers Voice and provide knowledge about some other social issues that are really important to Yonkers and Yonkers residents. So thank you so much.
Yonkers Voice is interested in bringing to light issues that affects our community, but also to bring up resolutions to those problems, answers to those problems.
Yes.
So until next time, Andrea.
Okay, thank you, Ruros. Take care.
Say hello to your husband. Take care.
Okay, I will. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.